everyone, and welcome back for number 2. This is going to be a long series of Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and intelligent power in nature and humans. That's powers in nature and humans. This may sound familiar, like the objectives of the Theosophical movement, which means to investigate the hidden laws of nature and the latent abilities in mankind, to look at the commonalities of all the world's religions, sciences, and philosophies. On this channel, which used to be called Living Theosophy, it's now Voice of Compassion, because I learned the hard way. I did. That it's not about theosophists, it's about theosophy. Theosophy, meaning the ancient teachings that belong to all of mankind. It's the same thing as the Perennial Philosophy. Theosophy, meaning theos, gods, Sophia, wisdom, the wisdom of the gods. It is ancient, timeless, truth. And Perennial Philosophy, perennial, which means unending, eternal, truth, teachings, wisdom, knowledge. So, in this text, you will find lots of Blavatsky is in here. Paul Brunton. You have Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton. This is by Edi Bilimoria. He wrote it down, but it is a phenomenal collection that I call, to me, this is like the secret teachings of all ages for the new millennium. And I want to be able to get it out there into the world so you can have access to it too. Right now it is available in hardback only. We are working on getting abridged versions and ebook versions and audiobook versions out. And these study sessions here, they're free. You can join me here. I'm going to try to do these a couple times a month, maybe once a week, to be able to get these out and into the world. So let's begin. This is study number 2 of Unfolding Consciousness. Here we go. Everything in the universe, through all its kingdoms, is conscious. That means endowed with a consciousness of its own kind and on its own plane of perception. There is no such thing as either dead or blind matter, as there is no blind or unconscious law. That's from the Secret Doctrine 1. Unfolding Consciousness, exploring the living universe and intelligent powers in nature and humans. Volume 1, a panoramic survey. Science contrasted with the Perennial Philosophy on consciousness and man. So we are going to finish some of Edi's colleagues' testimonies on this work. When you consider the scope, the width, and erudition of this work, it is not surprising that it took its author over 20 years to complete. Most philosophical books take a single view of the problem of consciousness, either scientific or philosophical. But Edi Bilimoria takes a much wider, more inclusive view. Who am I is the underlying question of Volume 1, a panoramic survey, science contrasted with the perennial, which means unending philosophy on consciousness and man, which provides an overview of the field, highlighting both the value of science and its limitations as a tool for examining the deeper problems of life and consciousness, and makes the case for the Perennial Philosophy as a bridge to reach a greater understanding of these areas. In Volume 2, Peering Down the Microscope, Man's Internal Landscape, Bilimoria manages the seemingly impossible task of finding a common ground in the mass of beliefs and practices, old and new, from diverse cultures, religions, and philosophies, to demonstrate an overlap and unifying doctrine even on such issues as post-mortem existence and rebirth and the complexities of the human mind. In Volume 3, Gazing Through the Telescope, Man is the Measure of All Things, is even a more ambitious in its aim to show how the human being fits into the grand scheme of the universe, to examine the question of emergence from the spiritual to the material, from the implicate order to its explicate expression. It draws on the insights of symbolism and mysticism and the deepest teachings of occultism to explain the nature of consciousness. In this 21st century, an era in which science is our dominant paradigm, and is playing an ever-increasing part in our technology and our lives, this work helps to adjust the balance and resolve the conflicts between science and religion on issues like evolution and purpose, the nature of consciousness, and what it truly means to be a human being, as opposed to an animated robot or a biological mechanism. This is a complex work, but each chapter opens with a synopsis and closes with a summary of the principal themes, which are extremely helpful and means that despite their complexity, the 3 volumes are always easy to understand and follow. I would recommend this set to anyone who wants a broad overview of the various traditions which have led to the current Western understanding of man's place in the universe. And that was Peter Fenwick. He was a senior lecturer at King's College London, where he worked as a consultant at the Institute of Psychiatry. He was the consultant neuropsychiatrist and neuropsychologist at the Maudsley and John Radcliffe Hospitals. He has worked with a mental health group at the University of Southampton, and he held a visiting professorship at the Riken Neurosciences Institute in Japan. He is President Emeritus of the Scientific and Medical Network. And lastly, undoubtedly, we live in historic times. The multitude of surrounding crises, both in everyday life and in the analyses of the experts, testify to this. In such crucial times, it is important that men of goodwill raise their voice and thus raise the collective consciousness of humanity. This is the only way we can overcome via this trilogy. The author raises exactly such a voice. By a brilliant tour de force, he provides us with a masterpiece that elucidates the origins of science and technology historically and ontologically, and relates them to the ultimate philosophical quest of perennial philosophy. It also shows why we got it wrong and where. As the author informs us meticulously, science in multiple instances was lured away from truth toward scientism and utilitarianism, blinded by its own great power. The trilogy at hand offers a way out by detailing exactly how we can correct this route of mindless exploitation and bring science back on track, back to its quest for the truth. The author is brilliantly clear on that. We treat nature as we treat ourselves. Therefore, to emerge alive from the crises we have put ourselves into, we have to rediscover the sacredness of nature, and in us. It is for this reason that Edi Bilimoria's work will prove a much-needed historic work in historic times. That's from Vasilios Basios, PhD in Physics of Complex Systems at the University of Brussels. And Edi begins with a dedication. As spoken by a wise man of the East, known only to a few, not one of the great teachers allowed this truth, the transcendent answer to the worldly malaise, material and psychological of the day, to be soiled by the lure of establishing any earthly utopia, or his life energy to be wasted in inventing techniques and systems for dealing with the muddlement and evil of the world's politics, economics, and unregenerate everyday life at their own level. Each of them saw, with unerring insight, that man the world over is himself the prolific spawner of ubiquitous ugliness and suffering, and that there is only one way to redeem the world's situation, the way of purity and truth and wisdom and love, the way of the unselfed, of the transformed man. It is each man's personal responsibility to realize this. This work is the writer's heartfelt tribute and obeisance to the illimitable sages of the Orient and the Occident, who have epitomized the noblest endeavors of humanity in philosophy and science, religion, and art, thus ever illuminating a path for mankind through the darkness and turbulence of the mundane world towards his true empyrean abode, should we but listen to their words. So there we have it. I'm just going to start reading it to you. We will have discussion groups. Please leave your comments down below. If you have any comments whatsoever, we're looking hopefully to get Edi on here on some of the study sessions. And again, I'm just a student with you. I want to learn these as well, because through learning them, I put them into application. And it is in everyday life that these teachings are meant to be used, not just in your Sunday best once a week or going to school to memorize them. It's not about that. It's about understanding them and applying them in your own life, leading to self-transformation. If we all took responsibility of our own lives and our own behavior and our actions and our thoughts, what a difference we would make. And that's the way we change the world, by changing ourselves. It's true. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you. It's been a while. I was off for, this whole channel was on hiatus for a year. So it's been a while, and it's great to be back. Remember that you have Light on the Path is on this channel as well, The Voice of the Silence. These are classic theosophical texts, as well as the 14 lessons, which started this whole thing. So thank you for being here. I love you. Leave your comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.